Lisa, welcome back. How are you?
I'm good, Matt. How are you?
I'm very good.
Good.
I just want to give the audience a quick little recap because you and I have recorded two previous podcasts,
Hmm.
and those podcasts were about your experience and the book that you have written, which I think you recently received a couple of awards. We can get into that in a second. But your book, Earth's Secret Visitors, a fantastic book. We covered that in the first couple podcasts. I'll put links to those below so everyone can go and check those out. But there's another aspect of your experience that I want to talk about today, and that is the healing aspect for which you are trained in through the Brennan School of Healing. And you have your credentials from there, and I want to talk about that today. Maybe to start off with, could you maybe just give everybody a brief overview of who Barbara Brennan was, and then we'll kind of get into your practice.
Barbara Brennan began as a NASA physicist, so she was very scientifically oriented, but her spiritual skills led her in the direction of studying the human energy field. And she was very, very educated in a number of modalities. And she combined quite a few of them and learned from everyone she could, and ended up writing the renowned book, Hands of Light, her first book, which is like the encyclopedia of the human energy field. There are fantastic artist renderings of what the field looks like. And so what we talk today, you might be able to get an artist rendering in that book if you want to see it rather than feel it within your own self as you watch.
Okay, excellent. So she was a NASA physicist who took a sort of a scientific approach to healing modalities. And, she has this well-credentialed school. I've asked around, and everyone I've asked about this school says that this is one of the better places you can go to understand and learn these modalities. It's a very credentialed school. So maybe we could talk about the origin of how you got attracted to this modality. How did you find it, and what attracted you to this particular type of training?
I think the introduction to energy itself came through the answer to a prayer that I had put out there at a time when my life was very difficult, and that is covered in the book. And I had a chance encounter with a person who ultimately invited me to attend lectures at a school of mysteries in the 1980s. I was completely fascinated with the sensation of receiving energy from his hand to my hand without making physical contact. He held his hands about 6 inches above mine. And when I felt the wonderful, pleasurable feeling of receiving that energy, I knew that day that was going to be the future of my life. At the time, I was in my 20s and I was in the music business. So these two things might have seemed like they wouldn't go together at all. I later studied with different teachers briefly because I hadn't found the right home for my training. When I got telepathically guided to get the book out that I had drafted in 1994, I was resisting because I knew it meant I had to deal with a lot of inner wounding, some trauma, some fear around being discovered to know what I knew because I had been strongly warned by the beings that big trouble could happen during those years of the occurrences, that it would be very problematic in my life. So I was a very clamped up person, very unwilling to be seen or heard. And I think this happens to quite a few people who have had experiences. They feel as if the best protection for themselves is silence because then their loved ones can't think them crazy and they can't end up being taken into therapy that they don't believe they need. They just need support. And silence becomes a protection where a person can be held within without really enjoying and receiving a lot of the beauties of life. So I began to do healing with a Brennan Healing Sciences practitioner in 2008. She suggested that I attend Healing Touch program, and I studied with Healing Touch program, which bases a chunk of its curriculum on the Brennan work. So I was getting that Brennan work from over about 15 years ago. And I got certified through that school. It is very closely related to the nursing organizations. At the time, it was certifying through the American Nurses Credentialing Center. I wasn't a nurse, but I was spiritually called, so I was allowed into the school. So over the years, I wanted still to attend the Brennan School, and I finally began to do it in 2021. When I graduated in June of 2025, I've been in practice since 2012. So I've been seeing clients for 14 years now, and each person deepens my experience and teaches me something more about the field because clients will open in different ways and show me different aspects of their past lives, of their woundings, of their what their beliefs look like inside of the field. The guidance has deepened with me where they're giving me protocols for specific people and sometimes techniques that have never been taught before, but they are sometimes moving ahead ancient practices into the now by bringing it forward through guidance to healers. So even though some of this healing is thousands of years old, it is being moved forward by the spirit beings from the divine realm.
All right. Excellent. And I want to ask you about how the human body energy field, like the physical human body and the energy field, communicate with each other during a healing process. Or maybe this is a process that's just happening all the time. Can you speak to how that communication, how you see that communication working?
How the There were four dimensions to the human being, the most solid of them being the physical body. You will have within you every cell talking to every other cell through communication. There will be information given through the DNA, information given through the organs, information given through the field, such as through the chakras and the levels of the aura. There is also a dimension of intention, which involves a center of vital energy, a center for the longings of the heart, and the point at which you become individuated from all other aspects of creation to become a unique being. So, and ultimately, source or your core star is the very beginning of your existence in the three dimensional. It shines forth from about your midsection. You could refer to it as your own sun, and it upwells into the haric or the dimension of intentionality, which has quite a bit to do with how much ease you have in manifesting what you are hoping to achieve in your lifetime. And it further upwells into the auric field, which passes through each level, 7, 6, 5th, from the to the fourth, to the third, to the second, to the first, and fills each chakra, nourishes. Energy is taken in by each chakra, which is a vortex, hopefully spinning clockwise. If it's spinning counterclockwise, there's some compromise there. Or it could be splintered or floppy or bent or damaged in some way. So work may be happening there. And this is where communication to the body occurs. When the energy is not passing through all of these levels fully to the body, there can be blockages where the body isn't receiving the nourishment that is meant to receive. And these blocks often come through wounding or could come through congested energy that can occur through protecting a wound, and it causes the energy to have to go around it. And that means that there's sort of a dead spot or like a rock in a river where the water's got to course around it. And a very healthy person will have divine flow coming through source, hara, the auric dimension, and then the body. And stress in the body is going to portray that there is some issue for the spirit calling for change. Discomfort or dis-ease has to do with the nature of the soul, where a well comfort leveled soul is and spirit is going to have peace and joy and be able to express all manner of gratitude because it will see beauty everywhere. A person who is very, very stressed out physically or exhausted or poorly nourished through their food intake will end up having some discomfort, and there can be blockages in the chakras, and they may need care. And that is often a very early place to start working, especially with what we call the chelation, which is a process of balancing, clearing, and recharging the field and getting the chakras open and spinning clockwise so that all the corresponding organs to each chakra will be receiving the nourishment that you need for good health.
Okay. So I want to ask about personal transformation when you're actually becoming healer in just one second, but can you maybe clarify for the audience? So do they train you to see these fields? Are you sensing these fields? Because I understand that you can sometimes like actually see the blockages. So are they training you on this?
At the Brennan School, they do teach through intuition exercises and through learning how to move through levels of the chakras and the levels of the field so that you can see better. People see in different ways, and some people see through vision. You can see literally, or you can see symbolically, and I tend to see a combination of both. Many people don't have it the way they wish they had it, but they do have an ability to sense energy. And we call that follow the energy because it will guide you to the information within the person. There are different types of intuition, such as clairvoyance, which is seeing through vision. There's clairaudience, which was my first initial sort of intuition. And I would say that was creeping up on me in my young adulthood because I had shut it down when I was young, when I was accosted by a negative, dark being. And I just shut it down and thought that wasn't a good deal. And then it began to happen where I was figuring out. So I'm a big believer in the people who have a divine knowing or a sense of understanding or even seeing well into the energy field. I know people who can see the core star very easily. I see it in terms of rays, and sometimes I don't see all the information that other people may gather from it, but we all have different ways of seeing or sensing. Another way is through clairsentience, which is through smell. We may smell something. Like I've been around beautiful people who do not ever wear fragrance because they're highly allergic, but being in their field, I could smell a very beautiful fragrance coming from their essence. So I have really enjoyed at times getting smells. I have at points smelled terrible smells, and then later in the day seen a image of a person and knew that they were in trouble. So everyone develops a different way, and there you can be taught. And through working with your energy field, especially as you clear it, you are very likely to develop your intuition.
Fascinating. All right, so I want to go back to this thought I had before about personal transformation and like to becoming a healer. Because I imagine if someone's life is a bit messy, it's going to not be as easy for them to pick up on these energies or see the auras or sense and be an efficient healer, so to speak. So, what inner shifts did you have to go through in order to hold that space so that you could be, as beneficial to others as you could?
I embarked on a healing journey before I formalized my training in the healing sciences. There is psychological work that you can do. There is work with energizing your body so that it is in balance, especially with your chakras, because many people are localized where their talents are, which may be mental. Some people are not very comfortable feeling their feelings, so they may avoid the sacral chakra, which is in the lower abdomen. The root is another chakra that a lot of people avoid because it means you've got to be connected to earth. And quite a few people come to earth not really wanting to be here. They may have felt there was a hostile environment awaiting them. They may have had bad experience in past lives. They just may feel like coming to earth is not going to be a good deal for them, and they may stay with their energy field raised up so that it doesn't meet the ground and doesn't envelop their lower extremities. Um, we want the process of transformation is bringing everything into wholeness, and there are always parts of ourselves that we have forgotten through trauma, through a decision, a self-protective decision of, I'm not going to deal with that. I'm just going to put it behind me, shove it aside. I'm going to go on with my life and pretend that never happened. And I myself did a lot of that when I was coming out of the story that is portrayed in the book. So when I was asked to do the book, that was like, oh, I'm going to have to deal with all of this stuff. And it felt like I was being asked to eat a box of worms. There was a lot of work to do. When I first began to become aware of my consciousness, looking at all kinds of areas where I had separated off events, put them into the forget about this or don't think about it. It's not good. Bad feelings, poor feelings, feelings of worth, feelings of missing out on self-love, for example, having a great deal of stress, not being very good at relationships, not being willing to speak your truth. Some people are very localized in their higher chakras because they find it safer, because it gives them the feeling of being higher up. And they can get a lot of information that way, but it can cause them to be somewhat lifted. And so when you balance the root, the sacral, which is in the lower abdomen, the solar plexus, which is where your ribs come together, your heart chakra, your throat, your brow, where your vision is not only for your life, but a lot of intuition can come through there, and your seventh, which connects you to the great all, you will find a great relaxation response in most cases because a person is not struggling between, I want to be here, but not here within myself. So bringing those aspects of self into oneness is a years long process. You could spend your entire life working on it and not be done because you've accumulated by now quite a few lifetimes, and you may become aware of lifetimes that are shadowing into your life now because you came in with work yet to do. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot to unpack there, and the idea of past lives and reincarnation. This is something I'm really starting to explore. I'm reading a book right now by Michael P. Newton called Journey of the Souls, where he has a few dozen case studies of regression work he's done with clients, and he's kind of mapping the sort of the in between space between lives. Uh, it's a
Mhm.
book that will challenge your belief system and rewire your worldview, but it's absolutely fascinating. And these types of individuals, these high credentialed individuals, have studied this across elite universities going back decades, and there are thousands of cases supporting this. And so, it, and there's even physical manifestations in the body that people carry with them into the next lifetime that are sort of markers of the way they may have passed away in a previous lifetime. So there's some sort of energetic imprint that manifests physically. And I imagine that would have to translate over to emotional and energetic imbalances in the body.
Yeah.
How would you determine or discern if a client is holding an imbalance emotionally, energetically, spiritually, how do you, I mean, I'm sure you've been trained on how to discern this, but how does that come about?
We always ask a client about their presenting complaint, what they would like to get out of a session in the here and now, as well as going forward into the future. If they're talking about chronic pain, that is a sign that there is something that came in through a past life. Quite a bit of chronic pain can be solved through what some would call past life healing. In the Brennan work, they refer to it as time capsule. And it is held like almost like a cyst. And inside it is the story of what occurred. There may be astral debris in the field. So you could end up noting a collar around a person, a steel collar that was meant to control slaves. There could be pieces of rope that may have had to do with hangings. There may be slits in the body that could have to do with stab wounds that occurred. And through energizing the capsule, you may see what appears like a movie. It runs through like a visual, like a short. And you'll see the scenario where something happened where there may have been, I'll just make one up. There may have been a love triangle and a betrayal, and somebody took a knife and stabbed them in the back. And I might myself be able to see a slit that's about this wide on the surface of the body, energetically, visually. And so
Mhm.
folks can even make out the shape of the knife itself, what
Mm.
type of blade it was. And by clearing that, it begins by energizing it. The client is likely to also see that movie of the past life experience, and they very likely will have an emotional release. It can be very potent, and it can be a hard cry, for example. And then you do some clearing of almost as if it's an infection and cauterize it and line it so that it won't fill up with the same issue again. Line it with silver and use rose light to fill it with love and seal it so that that space doesn't fill up with that issue again. And because there is an emotional release with wounding, for example, emotional wounding, for example, emotional release is key to bringing out the block. It breaks it open. It's almost like an abscess, letting
Mm.
the infection out. And a person who has an emotional release may have a bliss response following, where they feel a high degree of freedom, a high
Mm.
degree of expansion and joy and wonderment at what has just happened for them because they feel so different when they are not having to carry the weight of that wound anymore, that they
Mm.
feel that there is a renewal for them. And
Mm.
that's why I will tell people that the evidence of your healing has a lot to do with how you feel different in the now following treatment, as opposed to, say, a weighty issue that they were carrying with them that was always back there, kind of silently nagging or not even making itself known. It could be acting in the subconscious, but affecting their creation as they are manifesting their life in partnership with the creator. So clearing an emotional wound or a past life time capsule can be extremely liberating. And that is why we talk about transformation. But another way that we experience transformation is by giving ourselves the gift of that healing, because every single time you're going to be better off and you develop a sort of higher level of existence within yourself. You take on more closeness to the divine, more openness and genuineness, not only with yourself, but with others. And there are all kinds of levels at which your life will improve. And some of it is gradual and some of it is very sudden. So I refer to that as slow miracles and fast miracles, but miracles. for everyone.
Amazing. Let me ask you this question. This is just something that came up as you were speaking there. How important is it? Is this work will this work be completed whether the person believes in this or not? Can we talk about the power of belief in a client versus skepticism? I mean, is what's happening going to happen anyway, whether they believe it or not, or whether they see the effects or not? Can you talk about that for a second?
Yes, I can. The mode of allow is incredibly important in a person's healing journey. Now, it's very unlikely. I have never had an atheist come for a session because they may sense it's somewhere they don't want to go, because this involves contact with the creator. The highest, finest vibrations are the most healing, and they come through, I gather, from the universal energy field as well as the earth. I bring the energies into my heart. I add unconditional love, and it expands, even pouring down my hands, which is how we get the hands involved. We can place the energy. We can also send it. I do mostly long distance work. But the belief, the skepticism is very potent because the guides, everybody has guides, and they will not ever make you do something. They will never tell you what to do. They may bring you opportunities to choose, but force is not the way of the creator. The creator has all the time in the world for you to come to the point where you have interest in it. And I would say that every being ultimately at the soul level has a desire for communion with creator. Anyone who has a parent, even if they've had difficult experiences or never even known them, has very likely a high degree of desire to have connection and communion with their parent and with creator. Ultimately, the purposes of our lives is to develop, to evolve, to try out choices. And karma is the results of our choices, not a reward or punishment system, but the follow through of things that we have created through our choices. And in essence, when somebody's on the table, they probably won't get on the table if they don't believe in it. They'll say, I'm good. But belief is very, very potent in terms of that allow, because the more one opens to the divine, the more I will feel passing through my arms and through the flow. I can gauge how open they are, or as well how depleted they may have been if they are open and believing. But if they've gotten very worn out with caregiving, for example, the energy will run very strongly. And I'll gauge it through how fast it's coming through my arms, for example. But what you get out of a healing session has everything to do with your intention. So if a person got on the table and didn't want a healing, I wouldn't feel any energy going. I'd feel a stop. And I allow, I don't push energy. I don't pull energy unless it's for purposes of perhaps clearing virus. Something that really needs to be drawn out, but you can do that by matching the hands to the vibration of the infection itself so that you can gather it. It'll be attracted. But the allow is everything, and the openness and belief that there is love there for you, because love is the healing power.
Fascinating. Barbara Brennan talks about the creative process and the importance of intention. And you just touched on that for a second there and how important that is. How do you weave that into your sessions? Are you priming the client on maybe not the importance of that, but at least touching on that so that they're aware that this is part of the process? Do you prep them for that?
For people who tend to be chronically depleted, I always recommend time for self-care. And one of the forms of self-care is creativity because it will energize you. Because when you are being a creative being and delighting in the creations of your spirit or your inspiration or your mind, or drawing something that shows your feelings, anything that you do, music, dance, is going to energize you and replenish rather than deplete. So, yes, definitely the creative and creativity is very important in the healing process for myself. Getting back to music was very important because I had given up on it when I had encountered quite a bit of sexual harassment in the orchestra circles that I was in the years that I was just ready to turn professional. And I turned away from classical music for that reason. And there was a lot of training that happened there and a big letdown in my life because all that training had gone to what can I do now? I don't want to be in this setting. When you return to creativity, you're also enlivening the longings of your heart, and that is a major guidepost for your life. And it is a center that is referred to as the high heart. The heart chakra is in the center of the chest, between your breasts. The high heart is below the collarbone, or what I think is called the clavicle, and it, to my vision, looks like a golden, glowy candlelight. And it's not real big. It's about the size of a walnut, but it's being referred also to as the soul seat. It has to do with what you want to do with your life. And I always recommend before I get started with a new client to maybe take some time and look into what are the things you really want to do in your life.
Hmm.
Even if you think that ship has sailed, because sometimes those chances come back
Hmm.
even when you've given up on it. That and quite a few people return to what they thought they were never going to get to do, and they become the happiest people in the world. S-
Oh, sorry. I was just going to add, maybe it's important that they at least pursue that. That not maybe they don't reach the pinnacle of what they had in their mind, but the active pursuit of that is just keeping them in a space of being happy, right? Because I mean, let's just say you wanted to go be a professional basketball player, but that ship has sailed. You can still derive a great amount of enjoyment from that game or whatever aspect it is, like playing music or art or these things that put wind in people's sails. That's probably a huge aspect of getting the most out of these energetic healings because you want people to be happy. That's going to allow things to flow and
Yes.
to progress. I imagine. I'm just putting two and two
No,
together
you're
for
right. You did your homework.
um, I
Well, it
wanted to.
may be that if we get to be 65 and you still have a dream of being in the NBA, that would be a tough one, but you can join a local basketball team.
Right.
Can do so many things that are for the love of the activity, of the doing, of the physical, because exercise and being connected to our bodies can be very joyful. One thing that we get out of meditating is an expanded consciousness, which helps to relieve stress, which helps the mental body and the solar plexus, and even helps to calm and bring you close to yourself within your own self, which is going to be in the sacral chakra, which is in the lower abdomen. But doing what you love is always going to be the recommendation. And even adventuring into some new things that you didn't even know that you were going to love. But that self care includes the creativity, but also time for self, not giving every last drop that you've got to give and reserving nothing for yourself. It's really important to get to the top of your own list. Very, very important. Many people were taught you only give, you don't receive. And quite a few people come in to see me who don't get much out of life. They're not getting the kind of pay scale they should be getting according to their abilities. They are not getting great relationships with people, or they're always getting into one-way relationships where they're doing all the giving and the other people are not doing the not reciprocating. So giving and receiving is very, very important, and that can be very healing to the throat and the neck. Quite a few people take on a lot of burden on behalf of others, and that can weigh down a person's field quite a bit and cause physical pain. So a lot of times when I get someone come in with shoulder or neck pain, jaw pain, dental issues, tinnitus, even I might ask them how much are they giving in comparison to how much are they receiving, and it's usually severely out of balance. So that is something that is very healable.
I don't want you to breach any confidentiality here you have with any patients, but would you mind sharing a healing practice that you did with a patient where you saw sort of like a radical or at least a very impressive healing that went through that you were kind of witness to or you had feedback on?
Yes, and she has given her testimonial, so I can borrow from this case. A really beautiful healing which occurred, and I'll call this a fast miracle. She actually got drawn to the place I was working out of in New Jersey at the time. I was part of a group of practitioners, and she got magnetized to the building. We had been raising our light, raising our love, raising our prayers to the heavens, and she had a feeling she needed to get in there. And we did not have a receptionist at the time. So if you came while everybody was in session, the door would be locked. And she came and tried the door a number of times and said she persisted in trying to get in there. And then one day the door whipped open and she got in and she took a look around and said, "Oh, this is nice. No, I had to get in here." And what brought her was that she was being diagnosed with a blood cancer. And she was a young woman. Had not completed her education. She was in higher education, but not done. She had a vision of working in healthcare administration. And she felt she was too young to have such a serious thing as blood cancer. And they had not decided whether it was one diagnosis or another. And I spoke to her about her intention for her life. Was she planning to put her full faith and belief in her doctors and going down that path with them? Or did she believe that her life was meant to go another way? And we did the session, and she was extremely depleted, and I felt a little badly detecting how low on vital energy she was because she did feel very ill to me. So I asked her to give some time to herself and really think about her hopes for her life and to take good care of herself in the meantime and come back in about a month after she asked when could she come back. Well, she got another appointment in 2 weeks, and that concerned me at first because I thought she might be now settled with a specific diagnosis. And I went to go set up the road for the session, and she was already there. And she was talking with my colleagues, and everybody was cheerful and laughing and radiant, and she looked fantastic. And I was a little confused by that, but she came into the room with me after I'd set up the room, and she said, "I just wanted to tell you, I don't have cancer anymore."
Wow.
They said they don't know what happened, but I don't have to go there anymore. She had been getting her blood drawn every couple of weeks bi-monthly, and she was very tired of being stuck. And that is an example of intention having a very powerful effect on her self-healing. I will say all healing is self-healing. And I know other people who have healed and had tumors vanish. Other people who have healed enough that they didn't have to have multiple joints replaced from rheumatoid arthritis because we did emotional clearing. And it had been sitting in the joints and creating a very painful situation. And it was true the cartilage was very thin or non-existent, but not everyone who has no cartilage has excruciating pain. So sometimes the weight of emotional holding can be very painful on the body itself. So I have seen really beautiful cases of self-healing. I do not take credit beyond being a support for that person. I engage and surrender to the divine. I request the presence of their favorite angels, guides, ancestors, archangels. I have favorite ones that I like to work with because they have taught me a great deal and they work with my field itself so that it is prime to pass through the energy that is meant for that person.
Wow. Um, Lisa, I have one more question for you because,
Okay.
we can look around the world today. We can see like these collective sort of shifts and awareness, and all of these topics are starting to get more attention now. It appears to me that more and more people are looking at these topics with open eyes and more openness to these things. What do you feel humanity is being called to heal on like a deeper level? I mean, do you sense any do you sense like what I'm saying? Does that resonate with you at all?
It does. And the first impression that I have about what's going on this day and age is we almost don't have a choice to heal our own selves because the topic of healthcare is so contentious and there are factions that don't want to give it to people. And the people who can afford it are spending a very high amount and sometimes receiving diagnoses that do not resonate with them. They don't feel that's what the situation is. And that's when they begin to search and wonder, my life feels off. I'm uncomfortable in my own skin. I'm full of stress, anxiety, or depression. And some of these things are epidemics. So we are being called to wholeness. And meditation is a very, very beneficial means to improve the state of your inner realm. When you work with energy through meditation, you can heal yourself anytime you want to take a minute. Anytime you're standing in line at the grocery store, you can ground yourself and extend the roots of your first chakra, which extends from about the tailbone towards the earth, and cords will extend literally into the earth and attach to the molten lava energy that really helps to sustain our vital energies. There are so many things that you can do on your own. The healer is not the healer, they're a support. They know techniques for raising the vibration, improving the quality of life for the inner person. They may help the person heal their own relationship with themselves because quite a few people don't love themselves nearly enough. Quite a few people have difficulty making genuine connections through the heart. Quite a few people have difficulty expressing a need or having any belief that they will receive it, which would come in through the rare aspect of the fifth chakra. Many people don't know where their life is supposed to go, and that is a painful thing to live with if they don't know what their life is for. And I guarantee you, I promise to everyone, you have a purpose. And number one is healing yourself so that the divine, however you can call it God. I had a client who called it tree. I have clients of many different faiths. So I will use their language and invite their ascended masters to be with them. But when the divine flows through you, you will feel pleasure in your body. You will feel happiness with your circumstances, even though there will be challenges and tough things going on, and that relationship that continuously irks you. Even so many things that can be worked with healing. But I think healthcare in unfortunate ways is letting us down. But in a good way, it is turning us to ourselves. And many people are saying, what can I do for myself? And finding a quality healer, someone who surrenders to divine will, has done their ego work, meaning that they know that the ego is meant to keep you alive and safe, not to be the greatest guy in the world. And having a purpose doesn't mean you solve cancer or you're an Olympic athlete. It doesn't have to be gigantic. Anytime a person heals, another person will see them do that, and they will say, if they can do it, why can't I? And having the mentor that I have had for 18 years, she could do things I did not know that humans could do. And I watched her and I said, she just did that. I hope one day I will do that. And now I do it regularly. So when you heal yourself, you become an inspiration to others and a gift by sharing the gifts of your wound. So healing is a great reason for you to be on earth. And it probably, according to some spiritual writings, is the primary reason to come to earth.
Wow, Lisa, these are amazing sentiments. I mean, I think we're just kind of scratching the surface of what this is. I mean, I imagine that there are certain people out there that have been doing this for ages, and then we have new people that are coming into this with open eyes and wonder and skepticism and all of it at the same time. But I
Mm.
think we're really here on this cusp of a new age where a lot of these topics are going to start becoming more mainstream and people are going to start to see the benefits because I think that the seeing it and the pattern recognition, I think that's what people are starting to wake up to. They're starting to notice things more. And I think these sort of practices that you're engaging in is going to become more and more popular. And
Mm.
I really just want to thank you for sharing all this information. It's amazing to talk to you as always. Please tell people how they can find you, your website, and what do you have going on?
Okay, I have a homespun website, the first one I ever made during COVID, and it is titled Lisa Nelson Healing Touch at gmail.com. My email is Lisa Nelson HTP at gmail.com. You know what? I said that wrong. It's Lisa Nelson HealingTouch.com.
That's your website.
That's the website. I
Okay.
apologize, everybody. And email Lisa Nelson HTP, which stands for Healing Touch Practitioner, because that was my first credential. And that's at gmail.com.
Excellent. And I'll put links to all of that in the description below, as well as your book, Earth's Secret Visitors, which is an amazing read. And real quick, tell everybody about the awards you recently received for the book.
I'm going to sneak a little bit in there as well. With regards to my practice, I do work with people who have been accosted by beings that are very startling to them. And I do teach protection, which is really gained through the asking of an ascended master. I just want to throw this in quickly. Asking for protection, grounding yourself, making a choice to being fully incarnated, making a commitment to life on earth is the best protection against invasion of any kind, but that also includes beings from other realms. And remind me the question. So I had to get that in.
Yeah, so just tell everybody about the awards that the book recently had.
Oh, thank you for reminding me. The book received an award in two categories. One was Memoir Extraordinary Lives, and the other one I have to look quickly.
Well, we went through the book thoroughly in the first two podcasts, which for anybody that hasn't watched those, I'll say it again. Go back and watch episodes. I think they were like around episode 28, 29, or 30 that you and I did. And they were absolutely amazing. The book is really mind blowing and fun, and it's well written. And I told you this privately. I think it should be like a Netflix series because it would be absolutely entertaining. And it's based, and it would be based on your life, things that actually happened to you, which is
That
which
would
is
be fun.
amazing. Yeah.
Now, the two areas that the book was acknowledged for was life experiences, unusual or extraordinary lives, and memoir, unconventional or extraordinary lives. Now, that was very meaningful to me because I had hidden in the shadows with these secrets for so many decades. And to be acknowledged for letting it out was huge. And capitulated for me that I had reached a pretty good point in my own healing process. So I do know quite a bit about those people who don't get to be heard or don't get to be seen or choose not to be. And that can be so impactful in someone's life. So thank you for letting me share that.
Amazing. Thank you, Lisa, again for coming on and sharing about your work. This has been another amazing one. We're gonna
Yeah.
have to have you back on, of course, if you're open to it. And
Always.
thank you so much. And we're gonna wrap it up. Thank you, everybody.
Uh, bye, everyone.